My ex walked into my office, and everything started falling apart. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then my career began collapsing, one mistake at a time. She didn't say anything, but somehow she was always there when it happened. I didn't lose my job because I was weak. I lost it because someone wanted me gone. And my ex might be the key to everything. The moment I walked into the office that morning, I already felt something was wrong. Not loud, not obvious, just off. People were talking less, watching more. That kind of silence that usually means something important is about to happen. And then I saw her, standing near reception, holding a simple black folder, wearing a clean white shirt and dark blazer. Minimal, professional, almost unfamiliar. But I knew that face, even before she turned fully toward me. Lena, my ex. For a second, my steps slowed. Not because I didn't recognize her, but because she didn't react at all. No shock, no hesitation, no flicker of recognition. Just a calm, controlled expression, like I was a stranger passing by. "Daniel," a voice called from behind me. Mark Reynolds, my direct manager, stepped beside her. Late 40s, slightly overweight, always wearing expensive suits that didn't quite match his chaotic leadership style. He was confident in meetings, but reactive under pressure. "Perfect timing," he said, clapping his hands once. "Everyone, this is our new senior analyst, Lena Carter." Senior analyst. Not entry level, not junior. Senior. A few people around the office straightened up immediately. I noticed it. That subtle shift when someone new enters a space and changes the energy without saying a word. Lena gave a small nod. "Nice to meet you all." Her voice was calm, even, no emotion attached. But when her eyes finally met mine, it lasted less than a second. Then it moved on, as if I didn't exist. My stomach tightened slightly, but I didn't react. I couldn't. Mark continued, clearly proud. "Lena comes with strong experience in system optimization and data restructuring. She'll be leading several key projects starting this week." Leading. Not assisting, not supporting. Leading. Beside me, Jason Miller, my coworker, early 30s, tall, slightly messy hair, always energetic but not very focused, leaned closer. "Damn," he whispered. "New hire comes in hot, huh?" I didn't answer, because I couldn't take my eyes off her. Lena wasn't looking at me anymore. She was already listening to Mark, nodding slightly, taking mental notes. Composed. Detached. Like the past between us had been deleted. But I remembered everything. The way she used to laugh when she was tired. The way she used to argue when she cared. The way she used to look at me when she believed in something. That version of her didn't exist here. "Daniel," Mark said suddenly, pulling me back. "You'll be working closely with Lena on the new optimization project." Of course. Of all people. I forced a nod. "Understood." Lena finally turned slightly toward me again, just enough for our eyes to align. Still no emotion. No acknowledgement. Just a professional distance so sharp it felt intentional. "Looking forward to working with you," she said. Her tone was polite, but it didn't feel real, because I knew her voice. And that wasn't it. Something about this wasn't normal. And deep down, I already felt it. This wasn't just a reunion. It was the beginning of something I wouldn't be able to control. It started small. Too small to call it an attack, but I felt it immediately. My access to the main project folder was reduced that morning. No warning email, no explanation, just gone. I refreshed the system twice, thinking it was a technical glitch. It wasn't. Across the office, Lena was already working. Calm, focused, effortless. She sat in the glass meeting room with Mark and two senior engineers. Her posture was straight, her movements precise, like someone who had done this 1,000 times before. And maybe she had. "Daniel," Jason said from behind me, dropping into the chair beside my desk. He was chewing on a pen again, his usual nervous habit. "Did you get pulled off the optimization lead?" I didn't look at him. "Seems like it." "That's weird," he frowned. "You were basically running it." I didn't respond, because I didn't have an answer. Not yet. A few minutes later, Mark walked past my desk without stopping. That alone was unusual. Mark always liked control, always liked eye contact when making decisions. But today, he didn't even slow down. "Focus on supporting tasks for now," he said casually, like it was nothing. "Lena will take over the main structure." Support. Not lead. Not contribute. Support. I watched him walk away, my jaw tightening slightly. Inside the glass room, Lena was pointing at the screen. One of the engineers, a tall man in his mid-30s with sharp glasses and a permanent tired expression, Kevin, was nodding as she spoke. Kevin was known for being strict with logic, almost impossible to convince. But he was listening to her. Carefully. Respectfully. That shouldn't have been possible in just a few days. "She's good," Jason admitted quietly beside me. "Like, really good." I didn't like the way he said it. Because it wasn't admiration. It was comparison. And I knew exactly what that comparison meant. Later that afternoon, I passed by the meeting room. The door was slightly open. Lena's voice was steady inside. "We restructure the dependency chain here," she said, pointing at a diagram I had built weeks ago. "If we don't isolate this module, the entire system becomes unstable under load." Her explanation was perfect, clean, logical, flawless. Too flawless. Because I recognized that structure. It was mine. But she wasn't copying it. She was improving it. That was worse. Because it made her look better than me. I stepped back before anyone noticed me. At my desk, I opened my laptop again. My access was still limited. No update, no explanation, just silence. And slowly, I started noticing something else. People were speaking to me differently. Shorter conversations, less eye contact, more "we'll check with Lena" replies. As if I had already been repositioned, replaced. That night, I stayed later than usual. Most of the office was empty when I finally stood up. Only Lena's light was still on in the glass room. She was alone now, reviewing files, perfectly calm. I walked closer without thinking, and stopped outside the glass. For a moment, she didn't notice me. Then she did. Her eyes lifted. No surprise, no hesitation, just recognition. But still, no emotion. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she returned to her screen, as if I wasn't important enough to interrupt her work. And that was when I realized this wasn't just about a project. It was about position, control, and I was already losing both. The first mistake looked like mine. That was the problem. A client report went out with incorrect data values. Not dramatically wrong, just enough to damage credibility. Enough to make people question whether I had double-checked my work. I hadn't, because I never even opened that version. I stared at the file on my screen for a long time, scrolling through the edited sections. My original calculations were there, but overwritten in places I didn't recognize. Jason leaned over my shoulder. "Did you update this last night?" "No," I said immediately. He frowned. "Then who? I don't know," but I already had a guess. The next incident came 2 days later. Another file. Another small error. This time it was a dependency mapping issue. A critical line was removed, causing a delay in system integration. Nothing catastrophic individually, but together they were forming a pattern. A pattern I didn't like. In the IT department, I met Claire Morgan for the first time. She was in her late 30s, short curly hair, glasses slightly too big for her face, and the kind of tired expression that came from years of debugging other people's problems. She pulled up the system logs. "This is strange," she said, narrowing her eyes. "Your account shows activity, but the login timestamps don't match your working hours." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means someone accessed your profile, remotely or internally." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Can you trace it?" She shook her head slowly. "Not cleanly. Whoever did this knew how to mask it." Behind her words, there was something heavier. Experience. Fear. Not of me, of what this implied. That afternoon, I stayed late to double-check everything manually. The office was quieter than usual. Most people had left. Only a few lights remained on across the floor. And then I saw her, Lena, standing near the system access panel at the far end of the office corridor. She wasn't rushing, not sneaking, just standing there, holding a tablet, reviewing something with complete calm focus, as if she belonged there, as if she had every right to be there. I stopped walking. She didn't look up immediately, but I knew she felt me. When she finally did, her expression didn't change. No guilt, no surprise, nothing that would confirm what I was starting to think. Just that same quiet distance. "Working late?" she asked calmly. I didn't answer right away. "So are you." A pause. She nodded slightly. "System optimization requires adjustments outside normal hours." Her tone was smooth. Too smooth. I glanced at the access panel behind her. "You have clearance for that area?" "Yes," she replied instantly. No hesitation. Too fast. That was my first real doubt. Because confidence is normal, but perfection in timing isn't. I stepped closer. "Funny. IT said access logs were inconsistent." For the first time, a micro-expression. Barely visible. Gone almost immediately. But I saw it. Then she turned slightly, tapping her tablet once. "Maybe IT needs to update their tracking system." And just like that, she walked past me. No urgency, no avoidance, just control. And I stood there alone in the corridor, realizing something I didn't want to accept yet. These weren't random errors. They were directed. And I was no longer just losing work. I was being rewritten inside my own system.
By the end of the week, I was no longer sure what was real. Not the work, not the system, not even my own position in the company. Everything felt unstable. And at the center of it was Lena. I tried speaking to her that morning. It wasn't planned. I just waited until she left her desk and followed her into the hallway near the break room. "Lena," I called. She stopped. Slowly. Not surprised, not tense. Just paused like she already knew I would come. "I need to ask you something," I said. She turned slightly. Her face was calm, unreadable as always. Lena was 29, with long dark hair tied back neatly, pale skin, and an almost clinical sense of composure. She never rushed her movements, never wasted expression. "Yes?" she replied. I hesitated for a second. "Are you involved in the system changes happening on my projects?" A pause. Not long,
but deliberate. "I'm involved in project optimization," she said evenly. "That's not what I asked." Her eyes met mine briefly. No emotion, no familiarity, just distance. "I don't interfere with other people's accounts," she said, then stepped past me and walked away. That was it. No explanation, no closure. Just a door closing without sound. Jason noticed my frustration later that day. He leaned back in his chair, watching me scroll through logs again. "You've been off lately," he said. "I'm fine," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "No, you're not." I didn't answer, because arguing would only confirm what people were already starting to think, that I was losing control. And maybe I was. In the afternoon meeting, things got worse. Mark Reynolds was sitting at the head of the table, tapping his pen lightly against a folder. Lena stood beside the screen, presenting the latest system improvements. Her voice was steady, precise, confident, and worse, correct. She was explaining changes to a structure I had designed, but she was presenting them as improvements that reduced system instability by 18%. The room reacted immediately. "That's impressive," someone said. "Very efficient approach," another added. I stayed silent, because I noticed something no one else did. The improvement only made sense because the original structure had already been destabilized. By someone. After the meeting, Mark called me into his office. It was smaller than I expected. Too clean. Too controlled. Mark was in his late 40s, slightly balding, always wearing expensive suits that tried too hard to look relaxed. He gestured for me to sit. "Daniel," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I've been hearing some concerns." I already knew where this was going. "About your performance." I held his gaze. "From who?" He paused. That was answer enough. "Clients are noticing inconsistencies," he continued, "and internally there are questions about your attention to detail." Attention to detail. I almost laughed. Instead, I stayed still. "I've been reviewing system logs," I said carefully. "There are unauthorized access patterns tied to my account." Mark sighed, as if he had already heard this before. "IT says nothing conclusive." Of course they did, because nothing was supposed to be conclusive. That was the point. When I left his office, I saw Lena at the end of the corridor, waiting. Not for me, just there, as if she always knew where I would appear. Our eyes met for a moment. Still no emotion. But this time, I noticed something else. Not anger, not hatred. Control. And that was when I realized this wasn't just about replacing me. It was about making sure I couldn't prove I was ever right. I caught her alone after work. This time, I didn't hesitate. The office was nearly empty, lights dimmed, the hum of air conditioning louder than usual. Lena was still inside the main workspace, organizing files on her laptop like she had nowhere else to be. I walked in and closed the door behind me. She didn't look surprised. Of course she didn't. "Stop this," I said directly. Her fingers paused on the keyboard for half a second. Then she slowly closed the laptop and leaned back in her chair. "Stop what?" Lena asked calmly. That calm voice again. Always controlled. Always precise. "You know what I'm talking about," I said. "The system issues, the access logs, the mistakes showing up in my work." She tilted her head slightly. Lena was 29, slim, with sharp features that made her look almost untouchable in professional lighting. Her expression never fully shifted, like emotions were something she had learned to delete. "I think you're stressed," she said. That was it. No denial, no acknowledgement, just dismissal. "I have IT reports," I said. "Someone accessed my account." "And you think it's me?" she replied, almost softly. I didn't answer immediately, because that was the problem. I wasn't sure. And she knew it. Her eyes held mine, steady and unreadable. But something about them was familiar. Too familiar. It dragged something up from memory I didn't want to touch. A version of her from years ago. Not this version. Another life. "You haven't changed," I said quietly before I could stop myself. For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Not emotion. Recognition. Then it disappeared. "That's not relevant to work," she said, standing up. She grabbed her laptop and walked past me. No anger, no fear. Just distance. And that hurt more than any accusation. The next morning, Mark called me in again. His office felt colder this time. "Daniel," he said, not even looking up from his tablet, "I need you to be careful with how you're handling internal communication." "I'm reporting a security issue," I replied. He sighed. "IT has reviewed everything. There's no confirmed breach." "That's impossible." "Then maybe," he said finally, looking at me now, "the issue isn't the system." Silence. I understood what he meant. Or at least what he wanted me to think. That afternoon, I saw Lena speaking with someone new near the conference area. A woman I hadn't seen before. Tall, sharply dressed, probably early 30s. She had straight blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, glasses framing a face that looked permanently unimpressed. She introduced herself briefly when she noticed me. "Emily Shaw," she said, voice calm but firm. "Legal compliance." Her gaze lingered on me for half a second too long. Then she turned back to Lena. I noticed how differently she spoke to her. Respectfully, almost carefully, as if Lena had authority she wasn't supposed to have yet. That night, I stayed late again. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to understand what was happening. But instead of answers, I found something worse. A memory I didn't expect. Lena laughing. Not here, not now. Back then, before everything broke. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was chasing a conspiracy or running from guilt I had buried too deep to admit. I stopped trusting what I saw on screen. That was the first real shift. Because the system logs didn't just show errors anymore. They showed intention. I stayed late in the office, long after most people had left. Only the faint glow of monitors and the occasional sound of elevators breaking silence reminded me I wasn't alone in the building. I opened the access logs again. This time, I filtered deeper. And that's when I saw it. A third access point. Not mine. Not Lena's. Another user entirely. I leaned closer, my eyes scanning the metadata again and again, hoping I had misread it. But it was there. Consistent. Repeated. Hidden inside system maintenance windows that didn't trigger alerts. Jason, I muttered to myself. But he wasn't here. I pulled up the internal user list. Nothing unusual. That was the problem. Whoever it was didn't exist in the normal structure. Then my email pinged. One message. No subject. No sender name. Just a blank line that felt heavier than anything else I had seen that week. I opened it. Inside was a single sentence. You are looking at the wrong person. My body went still. I reread it. Once. Twice. Then a second line appeared as I refreshed. There is someone above her. I closed the laptop instinctively, not out of fear, out of instinct. Because suddenly, Lena wasn't the center of this anymore. She was part of something larger. The next morning, I went to IT again. This time, I asked for Claire Morgan specifically. She looked more tired than before. Short curly hair slightly messier, glasses resting low on her nose, fingers constantly moving like she was still debugging even when she wasn't at her desk. "You're still on this?" she asked immediately. "Yes," I said. She sighed, pulling up the logs again. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "These access patterns, they're layered, like someone is using one account to mask another." "Can you trace the source?" She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "No," she finally said. "It's being routed through internal clearance systems. That means someone high-level approved it." High level. That word stayed with me all day. Back at my desk, I noticed Lena speaking with Mark again. But this time, I didn't focus on her. I watched him. Mark Reynolds. Confident posture, controlled voice. Always just slightly too calm when things went wrong. For the first time, I wondered something I hadn't before. What if Lena wasn't acting alone? That afternoon, Emily Shaw approached my desk. Her presence was always the same. Precise, silent confidence. Blonde hair tied tightly, sharp suit, expression unreadable but observant. "Daniel," she said, placing a folder on my desk. "We need to discuss internal compliance concerns." "About me?" I asked. "About patterns in system access." That confirmed it. She wasn't just watching Lena. She was watching everything. "Is this related to Lena?" I asked carefully. Emily paused for a fraction of a second. Then, "Lena is not the problem." That answer didn't comfort me. It made everything worse. Because now I knew I wasn't dealing with one person anymore. I was dealing with a structure. And I was already inside it.
I didn't expect Lena to be the one who reached out first. It happened late in the evening, when most of the office had already emptied out. I was still reviewing the access logs again, trying to connect the missing pieces, when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Controlled. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Daniel," Lena said. I finally looked at her. She stood a few feet away, holding a thin folder this time instead of her usual laptop. Her expression was different. Not softer, but heavier. Like something had shifted behind her calm surface. "You've been digging too deep," she said. "That's new," I replied. "You usually pretend I don't exist." Then she stepped closer. "I need you to stop assuming I'm the enemy." That made me stop typing. For the first time, there was something different in her voice. Not emotion, clarity. "I never said that," I said carefully. "But everything points to you." She shook her head slightly. "Everything points through me, not to me." That sentence stayed in the air longer than it should have. I leaned back in my chair. "Explain." Lena hesitated. This time, it wasn't performance. It was calculation. Then she opened the folder. Inside were printed system logs, internal emails, and access traces I had never seen before. All structured, all organized, all pointing somewhere above us. "I wasn't hired to work here," she said quietly. "I was inserted here."
That caught me off guard. What does that mean? Her eyes didn't leave mine. Internal audit. Unofficial. Someone has been manipulating data flows, project outcomes, and performance reviews from inside the company. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. And you're just telling me this now. I couldn't trust you, she replied immediately. Fair. Too fair. That hurt more than I expected. She continued. Until I saw the same pattern affecting you. Silence again. For the first time, I noticed something else about her. Not distance. Fatigue. Real fatigue. Who are you working for? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, compliance oversight, external authorization, but someone inside blocked half my access. Emily Shaw. That name came into my mind immediately. Lena nodded slightly, as if reading my thoughts. She's part of it, but not the top layer. So who is? Lena looked away for a moment. I don't know yet, but they're close enough to control both of us. That was the first time I realized we were not fighting each other. We were both being used. The next morning, everything felt different. Not because something changed externally, but because I stopped looking at Lena as the source. I started looking at everyone else. Jason noticed it first. You're quiet today, he said, leaning on my desk. Same messy hair, same casual tone, but now even that felt like noise in my head. I'm thinking, I replied. About Lena? No, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. Because when I looked across the office, I saw Mark speaking privately with someone I hadn't noticed before. A man in a dark suit, standing too still, too observant. He wasn't part of our team. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. And when his eyes briefly met mine, I understood something I didn't want to accept. Lena wasn't the problem. She was the distraction. And whatever was controlling this company had already been watching me longer than I realized.
The final confrontation didn't happen in a quiet room. It happened in the heart of the company. The main conference hall was filled that morning. Managers, IT staff, legal compliance, even external auditors. The atmosphere was heavy, like everyone already knew something was about to break. Mark Reynolds stood at the center of the table, arms crossed, trying to maintain control over a room that was already slipping from him. Beside me, Lena was calm. But this time, it wasn't the same calm as before. It was focus. Final stage focus. Emily Shaw stood near the legal team, her posture straight, face unreadable as always. But today, there was tension in her eyes. Subtle, controlled, but real. And then, the man in the dark suit appeared again. He didn't sit. He just observed. Like a judge waiting for evidence. Lena stepped forward first. She connected her laptop to the system display without asking for permission. Before we begin, she said, voice steady, I want to show something. Mark frowned. This isn't on the agenda. It is now, she replied. The screen lit up. System logs, access trails, layered authentication paths, and then a full map of internal data manipulation. A collective silence fell across the room. Jason, sitting at the back, whispered under his breath. What the hell? Lena continued. These logs show unauthorized data restructuring across multiple projects, she said. Performance metrics were altered. Project failures were engineered, and certain employees were targeted to appear incompetent. Her eyes moved slightly toward me. Not accusation. Evidence.
My chest tightened. She clicked again. My account appeared on screen. Every error I had experienced, every modification, every timestamp mismatch. Then another layer appeared. A hidden administrator node. Mark Reynolds. The room shifted instantly. "That's impossible," Mark said sharply. "Those systems require multi-level authorization." "They did," Lena replied calmly, "until someone created a backdoor using executive override credentials." A murmur spread through the room. Emily stepped forward slightly. "If this is accurate, then we're dealing with internal abuse of authority at a structural level." Her voice was controlled, but I noticed it now. She already suspected. Lena turned the screen again, and this time, the final connection appeared. The external control point. The man in the dark suit finally spoke for the first time. "Enough!" His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped everything. He walked forward slowly, placing a folder on the table. "I'm from Corporate Oversight Division," he said. "We've been monitoring anomalies across subsidiaries for months." Mark's expression changed. Not fear. Recognition. That was worse, because it meant he knew this moment could come. Lena turned to me slightly. "This is the part where everything becomes clear." But I was already watching Mark. And for the first time, he wasn't looking at me or Lena. He was looking at the folder, like it contained something he had been trying to hide for a very long time. The investigation moved quickly after that. Too quickly. Mark was suspended within hours. Systems were frozen, logs were extracted, audits began. And just like that, the structure collapsed. Later that evening, Lena and I stood outside the building. No more tension, no more distance, just silence. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked. "For pulling you into this." I shook my head. "You didn't pull me in. I was already inside." She didn't respond immediately. Then she nodded once. For the first time, she looked lighter. Not free, but no longer alone. And as I looked back at the building behind us, I realized something simple. The system had been broken long before I noticed. We just finally saw the cracks. After everything that happened, I didn't lose my career. I rebuilt it. The investigation cleared my name completely, and for the first time in a long while, I was no longer seen as the problem in the system. A few weeks later, I was officially promoted to lead a new internal recovery project, ironically designed to fix the very structure that had almost destroyed me. Lena didn't stay at the company. She resigned shortly after the case closed, saying she needed distance from everything that had happened. But she didn't disappear from my life. We still talked, carefully at first, then more naturally over time, like two people learning how to exist without tension between every word. There was no apology that could erase the past, and we both knew that. But there was understanding now. No more suspicion. No more silence filled with doubt. Just two people who had been used, broken, and misled, slowly learning how to rebuild trust in something that once felt impossible. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing the truth alone anymore. I felt like I was finally moving forward, with her, not against her. What would you do if you were me? Trust her or fight her? If someone from your past destroyed your career but was actually trying to save you, would you forgive them or walk away? Comment your choice below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic corporate stories.